present to you an overview of a curriculum that we are developing, working with the Ministry of Finance, SIGA, and public enterprises. The whole idea is to be able to standardize teaching and learning of board directors and key management staff. So if you go to, say, IOD, if you go to any training institution, these elements are supposed to be basic, of course, with the needed activities and all the necessary pedagogy that comes with it. So in the last 5 months, that's what we've been working with the 3 ministries and agencies I mentioned. So I'll take you through the architecture, give you a bit of background, and we'll save our questions for the moderation session. Okay, so my presentation is outlined in this order. We have the rationale, objective of this exercise, the activities for the assignment, the structure of the curriculum, where we are, and sustainability. So these basic elements will be discussed during my presentation. So the background of this whole assignment started about 6 years ago with that's 2015. There was a review, a governance review by the World Bank for some 5 SOEs. So you have the MIRI, ECG, Ghana Water, GNPC, and TDC. So the whole, when my earlier presenter was talking, she made my work easy because she alluded to the fact that corporate governance is important. If you want to list on the stock exchange, the first thing they'll do is to go through your governance structure. And that is what the World Bank did for these 5 SOEs, just to pilot for with the action points that they have identified during their review. And one of the key action points they identified was to continually develop capacity of boards and key management staff, because they identified that there was a poor governance arrangement with some of these SOEs, and one of the key elements is to train them, then you need to have a standardized curriculum that will be used to teach boards. And of course, in the last 4 years, doing this similar thing with the Bank of Ghana for some financial institutions, I've seen that it really translates, continuous training of boards translates into value. So we're engaged by the Ministry of Finance to develop curriculum, and I worked with over 12 different subject area experts. I think I have one of them with me, Dr. Enusen. Please show by hands. Yes, so Dr. Enusen worked closely with me on this, with many other consultants who are not here. Okay. So the objective of this project was to build a capacity of boards using a standardized curriculum, which I've mentioned, and then design a sustainable plan over time, year on year, how that can be onboarded. Please, my next presentation. Yes. So we started by developing the skeleton of the curriculum. Let's call it a table of contents, which I will show up shortly. We went into developing the fine details. We did 1 or 2 meetings to engage on the content, which we are also here to present to you, and of course take away further content based on our meeting. Then we'll be doing a training of SC boards, and we'll do a TOT for some institutions who onboard the curriculum after the project, so that if you need further training in any of the subject areas, you can contact them for them to do that. Okay, so the outline of the curriculum is in section in 5 books. Corporate governance and the board. That's the section 1. I'll give you the further details. You have section 2, which is legal and regulatory framework. So to sit on an SOE board, the various legal frameworks that you need to understand. And we had Mark presenting to us PFM requirements for reporting and additional things from any of those laws. Then you have strategic leadership. Strategic leadership has other sub-modules, which we'll look at in later. Then you have control environment in a specified entity, procurement and related subjects. Then financial stewardship and accountability. Okay, so if you go into corporate governance and the board, we have 8 key modules. The first module is to build a background, which is the basic of governance. The module 2 focuses on the role of the state and the right of the minority. How do you give value to the state? And what is the right of the minority, other stakeholders who are involved? The module 3, we have board rules, duties, and liabilities. Then we have board appointment, composition, and structure. How the architecture of your board is supposed to look like. Then board practices and procedures. Module 5, board effectiveness and professionalism. Here we are looking at evaluation and continuous evaluation, ongoing training and development of the board. Then board information technology governance. I find the theme for today's meeting very handy, leadership and technology. How can we use technology to enhance our business? If not for anything, COVID has taught us that we can't take away IT. Then module 8 looks at governance dispute resolution. What key skills do you require to be able to effectively resolve your disputes, given that we are human beings who sit on the board? Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with the further details, but each of the modules has fine details, which has been outlined, and I will, please take me to the next slide on legal, please. Okay, so legal framework, the section 2 legal framework will look at the legal architecture of an SOE, antecedents, so history of development of SOEs in Ghana, then what legal requirement created some SOEs, or that's birth SOEs, then look at ownership policy, then the changing framework for ownership, reporting systems. These are broader headers, so if you go into any of this, you would find laws or relevant sections of the laws that speak to the various topics and the legal framework. And of course, AML and CFT issues, given the times that we are in, when it comes to AML issues, the board needs to stay alert. Data protection, right to information, operating environment of SOE, then protecting the minority, the legal perspective. So this is what we have under legal and regulatory environment. Then we'll go into strategic leadership. Strategic leadership here, we are looking at governance of strategy, i.e. what makes a good strategy, what is the role of the board in making strategy objectives achieved, or monitoring strategic objectives. Then a bit about HR planning here. Then the model 2 of strategic leadership looks at the governance of risk. What are the concepts and nature of risk management, risk appetite and strategy, business continuity planning, and risk mitigation? So these are further developed with case studies and instructional guide for how this should be rolled out. Then you have, please keep me back to that slide. Then you have module 3 under strategic leadership, HR issues. Given that the board is supposed to have various subject matter experts and they are faced with various issues, they need to have an idea of what performance for SEs look like, what procedures are used to manage performance, and performance reporting issues. So these are not very detailed. It is just for the board to understand what their role is when it comes to these various subjects. Okay. All right, so section 4 of book 4 of the curriculum looks at control environment in specified entities. Here we are looking at internal and external controls and its implications. Then there's a section on public procurement. What are the nuances of the procurement, the typical procurement arrangement for SEs? And we used the law and other leading procurement requirements from World Bank and other practices. Okay, please take me to the section 5. So section 5 looks at financial stewardship and accountability. Here, we looked at financial oversight and management. What the expectations of boards are when it comes to financial management issues. Financial reporting under PFM, the financial health of SOEs. And you remember that in the earlier presentation, Mark made mention of the fact that there are a number of SOEs who didn't present their financial statements, and it is the responsibility of the board. So some of these issues will be highlighted during the training for boards to take advantage. Then fundamentals of accounting for business leaders. So if you have board members who may not be financially inclined, what are the basics of a financial statement that they need to understand so that they can make enhanced decision during board meetings? So there's a section that speaks to it, and a live case study of a disguised financial statement of one of the SOEs that has been used as a demonstration. Okay, then model 3 under this book 5, we have financial reporting and disclosures, disclosure requirements for SEs, accounting standards for financial reporting, and the role of board audit committee in this area. Then we have the last module, budgeting and financial planning for SEs, understanding financial objectives, setting strategic management goals, financial planning and budgeting, board oversight role in budget performance. Okay. Next slide. Now, where are we in this process that we've been engaging? We are here to possibly have your thoughts. If there's anything we've taken out during the discussion session, we'll be here to take your comments prior to finalization. Then there will be a session of training boards on some of the areas that has been developed. We are working with the various institutions who are in charge of this to make this happen. Yes, so how can we ensure sustainability? After this year, how can this be sustained? The idea is to mirror what the Bank of Ghana is doing. Those of us who sit on banks and other financial institutions, you notice that every year you are called to go through certification. Certification simply means that you should have gone through an agreed set of modules or training for that year with any of the approved institutions by the Bank of Ghana. And hopefully through this exercise, the Ministry of Finance will identify some institutions who on an ongoing basis can deliver this training. And we hope that we can build the capacity of those facilitators, content-wise, skills-wise, to be able to deliver this in a very exciting way to boards. Then another way which we are engaging with SIGA and the other ministries is to ensure that there's an enabling policy which can uphold this so that monitoring can always be done based on that policy. And why the Bank of Ghana success story is working is because in their corporate governance directive, you must necessarily have the certification. So there's an enabling law that makes this work. So it's something that we have been discussing and seeing how that can be possible, drawing on the experience from the banking sector. Then, of course, continuous monitoring and reporting of such. Yes. So if we have any questions, we'll take them during the panel session. But when the president asks the question that what will you do as a steward and what one positive change will you leave behind, I thought that could set us thinking, because the journey of governance starts with these things. If nothing wakes you up at dawn as a board director, then you are not, I'm sorry, there's nothing that challenges you on the board. Something should wake you up at dawn to say, what can I do to make this institution remember me during my term? And I leave this with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Florence Hopudu. She said something should wake you up in the morning. Next on the program, we'll take a presentation from Mr. Samuel Obeng Ankuma. He's a manager in charge of energy, finance, and allied services at SIGA. Mr. Samuel Obeng Ankuma.
Minister. Good morning, Director General, Ambassador Edward Watson. I wish to ride on earlier protocols. Okay. I'll ride on earlier protocols. A while ago, my DG, Ambassador Edward Watson, reiterated the expectations of government at the macro level. And he had said that collectively, government expects that SOEs or specified entities should do 1/3 or 30% of our national GDP. Now, at the firm level, reserve it. Now, what does it do? It's a policy tool or a management tool that depicts the sequencing and timetabling of the key program of work for SIGA. It is cyclical. That means that it has to be done almost every year. And these are backed by the law. So it is cyclical. And then it depicts the key variables that has to be delivered at every point in time in the year. So everybody is clear on what deliverables are required. And then it also specifies what reporting requirements that are required of the specified entities. We have taken the initiative. Now, this is an extract of the main annual work cycle. Now, the full-blown version will be shared with SEs in due course. But this is just an extract to the extent that they relate to specified entities. So operationally, financially, our financial year starts from January to December. But if you look at the activities, operationally, it starts somewhere in July. And that's where we put in a request to specified entities and request for various corporate reports, a number of them. So by August, we expect that these reports will start trickling in. And then at SIGA, our staff and our professionals will start analyzing these reports, the various forms, the various divisions, analyzing these reports. And then, very important, by September, SIGA should be able to generate a report that feeds into the national budget. Because by our laws, by 1st October, the minister should be preparing its national budget. So it needs that information to feed into that. So by September, SIGA should have that information ready for the minister. Then in between October and then December, we do our performance contract negotiations. So it starts with the pre-negotiations and so on, the negotiations proper, and then the signing. Yes. And then by November, we want to engage the Auditor General over appointment of auditors. Now, one of the key reasons why sometimes these reports don't come in is largely because some of the SEs are left orphaned without auditors. So we found the need and we want to intervene. So by November, we want to do that intervention by engaging the internal auditor, the Auditor General, ensuring that those SEs that are orphaned have auditors. So we'll do that in November. Then in February, we start to receive the unaudited financial statements. And this is very critical. We don't need the audited financial statement. If it's not ready, at least let the unaudited one come so that we start at least doing our work. And then by March, we start to receive the audited one. There are challenges, but we want to put it there so that we all work towards meeting that standard. So by March, we should be receiving the audited one, and then we tweak our report here and there. April, what we intend to do is that we conduct on-site performance evaluation visits. So we have a draft in our hands, we visit the SE, and then we raise all the issues and discuss all the matters that we want. When we come back by May, we should be in a position to evaluate the SEs. And then in August, we meet in a forum like this to end the operational year and discuss issues that are of common interest. So essentially, this is the cycle, but the full version of it will be shared with SEs in due course. Okay, so technology. A lot has been said on this. Mr. Adade mentioned some collaborative efforts in this area. And he quoted 202 of LI 2378, which provides for a real-time monitoring. And SIGA is working towards that. Now, it's one of our big projects which we intend to approach in 2 phases. So in phase 1, we want to move towards a near real-time kind of monitoring. However, in phase 2, can I show? Yes. So, I won't bore you with the details, but in phase 1, the end product is that we'll move towards a near real-time kind of monitoring. In phase 2, we want to achieve a full real-time monitoring. Our IT division will collaborate with IT experts and then the Controller and Accountant General in this area to explore this project. Now, what are the benefits? The annual work cycle and then the technology, when we have implemented them. We anticipate certain benefits. First of all, we anticipate that our financial oversight will be enhanced. Then number 2, we also anticipate, anticipate that compliance will be facilitated. And then SEs will work within the framework of the public financial management laws. 3, we also anticipate that clarity is brought to the SEs. They know exactly what documents to submit to SIGA and at what time. Number 4, we also anticipate a seamless flow of information between the SEs and SIGA. And then last but not least, we also expect that the SEs align their budgeting cycles, their programs and activities to the work of SIGA. So at any point in time when we need those reports, they come in handy. Thank you for listening. So our vision at SIGA is to become a hub of excellence and a strategic partner for the transformation of specified entities in achievement of our mandates by 2030. And all of this that we are doing is geared towards this vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Mrs. Samuel Obeng Ankuma. That was a very short and insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have listened to 6 presentations so far. The first was on policy coherence for operational efficiency and profitability of specified entities. The second was expanding the national account to include SOEs and JVCs. The third was accessing patient capital for strategic growth. And this was from the Ghana Stock Exchange. Then we've had deploying a corporate governance curriculum for training of boards of specified entities. And last but not the least, SIGA's annual work cycle and reporting requirements. At this point, we're going to have a brief discussion. I'm sure some of you have questions, and the presenters would gladly answer them. Please, if I could have a member of the technical support. I think we can put some chairs here for our presenters to be on stage here. Earlier on, we heard from our Minister in charge of Public Enterprises, Honorable Joseph Kujo. He has another pressing engagement to be at, but before he leaves, he wants to share a few words with us over what we have witnessed this morning. Honorable Joseph Kujo. Okay.
Oh, let me stand here. It's available for it. But I'm happy I had time to listen to all the presentations so that some general comments which would have found expression in my speech I can comment on and leave for Parliament. It is not a personal engagement. You know, at 138, 137 majority. So we are short in Parliament by one major vote as I stand here. So I'll just comment and quickly leave. First, Mr. Dade's presentation on the national account. It is my personal plea, and you understand the basis for the plea, to all board chairs and MDs to bring to focus our compliance to make sure that we submit every needed information to enable preparation of the national accounts. And normally when accountants speak, they end at preparing the account. And when financial analysts take the same information, we can see some wonderful things out of it. I would say that when he presented the national accounts, the fact of Ghana as an entity preparing an account and showing inflows or receipts and outflows or expenditure, and seeing that there is a certain huge negative gap, which I saw was about 40 billion Ghana cedis. I said, that one, inflows, outflows, you can record it up to any extent possible so far as the accuracy is concerned. They validated the data and throw it out there. That data is in the world. When you look at the balance sheet, I also saw a net worth of, if I pick the figure right, 179 billion Ghana cedis. To us, financial analysts, this information explains to me why Mauritius can go to the world and borrow at a cheaper cost than Ghana can. Why another country that has a positive net cash flow position would borrow cheaper, and a positive net asset position to borrow cheaper. When we cast our ears into the news around us, the financial news, we keep saying, Ghana's debt, Ghana has overborrowed, Ghana does. And it's on everybody's mouth. The national debt, how much is it? In excess of the interest payment, let me put the interest payment for 2022 budget. It is in excess of about 37 billion Ghana cedis. Interest. This is not money we are paying to get roads done, to get schools built, to get hospitals built. This is interest on using somebody's money. We have borrowed. We have to pay capital, pay up, return the capital, and pay interest. And if interest costs for a country is 7 billion, how can the country develop? When the country is sitting on an asset of specified entities, state-owned entities, and the world doesn't even know. So they will price the loan very expensive to you. And it is like personal finance. When you go to the bank and you want to borrow, they say collateral, or they want to see your net worth, how much you are worth. If you don't have assets to show that I have all these assets, they either don't give you the loan, or they give you the loan at high risk, and for them at a higher cost. Simple. The same thing, there are analysts around the world looking at our financial status and judging us on the information we have provided. So my point is that when you are managing a specified entity and you are not providing information, that will enable Mr. Adade and the team prepare the national account so that we'll present a very reflective picture of the country's status. When they say national debt, we shouldn't comment because we are sitting on the information. When we say we have borrowed too much, you are sitting on the information. When we say the interest cost is too much, you are part of it, causing that high interest cost. Because if you brought a balance sheet for us to put all the assets together, we'll be able to negotiate lower interest costs on the basis of the assets we have as a country. That is why I'm pleading that we should take this submission of information for account preparation, SOE category, joint venture company category, and other state entities category. We should take it very serious so that we can get a good national account that will enable us lower our borrowing cost come 2023. Because that's for 2022, the debt is outstanding. I also want to comment on Ghana Stock Exchange, the presentation, patient capital. Unfortunately, Mr. Adade, accountants lead financial opinion in this country, not necessarily finance people, unfortunately. So my personal experience associated with the Ghana Stock Exchange, it was very difficult convincing the next one company to get listed on the stock market because they will listen to the professional accountant who will give an adverse advice against listing on the stock market. But we cannot be wiser in professional practice than those that are practicing capitalism by itself and understand the value of the stock market. US, UK, Singapore, Japan, all these countries, South Africa, Nigeria is now joining the muzzle the stock market presents. All these countries just use the stock market to raise the necessary capital, whether equity or debt, to run enterprises, and not banks. And I repeat, and not banks. Maybe banks come and lie to us, oh, we will lend you this, we will lend you this. Who says bank loans, short-term in nature, overdrafts, simplest to get and arrange, will save your enterprise? Short-term in nature, but on the stock market, you can raise 5 to 7 year loan, which is very difficult to get from a bank financing source. So when we sit on our enterprises and we are complaining about financing source, the instrument and the vehicle to raise the funds exists in Ghana and has existed for 31 years. Fortunately for us, Minister of Finance will not be laboring to pass e-levy and be thinking of us that when we need capitalization, he will bring part of the e-levy too. You see how we are laboring to pass that revenue source. It will go into roads, it will go into hospitals, it will go into job creation. It will not come to us as public enterprises. So let's begin to look at the stock market to capitalize. Thus, I say, once we package our enterprises very well, we will be able to proudly access funding through the stock market and be good and operate profitably. I think my last take is likely to be on the training of boards, the curriculum that is being developed. 65 years in the history of state enterprise history in Ghana, and we are filling in the gap. This is so important boards direct management team. Management team directs staff and deliver results, unfortunately. Institute of Directors, I believe Kwame Nkrumah must have founded you guys. Is that the case? When was Institute of Directors established? 98. So it's in itself a gap. When you go to when Big Push industrialization started, one of the gaps we had was training of directors to have led management teams of these enterprises to have delivered the results we wanted. But that remained a gap until from independence. Institute of Accounting was done, economics was done, a lot of institutes, but that became a gap. I am happy seeing a curriculum, very comprehensive one, to train board members, to be able to oversight management teams so that we'll see profitable, efficient, and productive operations of our enterprises. I'll leave you with these comments, but let's keep thinking that we are a third of the GDP of Ghana, and that when we perform, when we deliver results, the results will be amazing to all of us. Let's seek to leave the legacies as MDs and board chairs of the state enterprises, and one day we'll be remembered for the good works we've done. I'll leave you to continue with the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Joseph Kujo. I'd like to call the various presenters for this morning onto the stage. Unfortunately, Dr. Kojo Isia meant Apram, but he did the first presentation. He had to take leave, so I would ask Mr. Mark Effort Adade to please come up on stage, Ms. Abena Amoa, Ms. Florence Hopudu, as well as Mr. Samuel Obeng Ankuma. We'll take a couple of questions, so please get your questions ready. We'll bring the microphone around for you to ask your questions. Thank you. A car has blocked another vehicle. Car number is GR944722. The make is a authority you are with.
Thank you. My name is Franklin Owusu Asafoji, a member of the SIGA board. Mine is a combination of questions and comments, and specifically to Mr. Adade. One, I wasn't sure whether you were talking about receipts and payments or profit and loss, which in your case is expenditure, income and expenditure. Because you seem to be talking about both at the same time. Because receipts are different, payments are different from expenditure. For example, you owe somebody at the end of the balance sheet date, but you pay it the following year. The expenditure will have been incurred even somewhere in the middle of the preceding year, but the payment is made subsequently in the following year. So the two are not the same. And some of your receipts too may have come from some people who owed you some time ago and they paid this year. So in that case, if you combine that with, if you say profit or loss and then receipts and payment, then there's confusion there. Because profit and loss or expenditure and income and expenditure accounts are based on accruals accounting. So we have to clarify how the two, because you are preparing what we call consolidated financial statements, like a holding company. The government is the holding the good state of Ghana is the holding company, and the agencies, the SOEs and the rest, they are the subsidiaries. And you must have one accounting principle and policies before you can prepare a true and fair consolidated financial statements. Then also, talking about loans, so I would like to know the basis, whether it is income, receipts and payments accounts, or it is income and expenditure accounts, so that I will be very clear on my mind, and indeed other people too will be very clear on their minds. Then you said Electricity Company Limited, they showed the largest amount of what payments. I would like to know whether the electricity you distinguish between their capital expenditure and recurrent expenditure, because the capital expenditure shouldn't go straight into one particular year's receipts and payments or income and expenditure, because any capital expenditure is to be benefited from over a certain period of time. That is why we have depreciation. So you spread the cost of that expenditure over the periods that will benefit from its useful economic life. That is depreciation. Thank you. Then the next one, regarding liabilities.
For the sake of time, I think that
this one, please let me. This one is very key.
Okay.
The next one, at the beginning of every year, the government may own some liabilities, which is monetary liabilities, denominated in foreign currencies. And because of the cedi depreciation, by the end of the year, when you reconvert, they will give a higher, so there's a capital, what we call it, exchange loss. It gives the impression that you have borrowed more, but in cedi terms, you wouldn't have borrowed more. The dollar remains the same, but because of the depreciation, when you convert at the end of the year, it gives the wrong impression that you've borrowed too much. So you must always distinguish between those monetary liabilities, that is, liabilities that are denominated in foreign currencies, which are converted, and the exchange losses arising from the conversion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Asafo-Adjei, right? Good. Thank you very much for the question. Our senior has taken us to accounting school, and I thank you very much for bringing this. If you're an accountant, you are talking, sometimes we take things for granted. Everybody also speaks and understands our language. Maybe in my presentation, I behaved like that. I'm not sure though, but I'll use the opportunity to also do a little schooling on accounting right now. I don't know if the operators can project the financial statement. Mr. Asafo-Adjei, I presented receipt and payment of Ghana and revenue and expenditure as in statement of financial position. In the private sector, we all know it as profit and loss. There were two different statements I presented. And the receipt and payments, we are dealing with only cash. It has no accruals happen there, in that if cash did not move, those figures will not appear.
in the statement. So the receipt and payment simply presents what came in to the country as in the form of cash, both capital and recurrent, including the loans that we took and the revenues that we raised. And the same thing, the receipt and payment, or the statement of receipt and payment, all expenditure, including the loans that we've paid or we've serviced, and the expenditure we incurred to develop the country via cash. So, for us to know the financial performance for the year, that's when I presented the statement of financial performance, likened to profit and loss account. That is where full accruals was applied. And irrespective of whether cash was received or cash moved or not, once we incur the expenditure or we earn the revenue, those figures reflected in the statement of financial position. So they've still not projected it. I agree with you, and that's exactly what I presented in the accounts. So if you have the figures, I can engage you further to really explain it to you. On ECG, capital and revenue expenditure, if you look at the slide on the SOE, specific SOEs which is consolidated, that is the performance position of ECG. That was purely financial performance. It excluded the loans, it excluded the capital expenditure. It's purely recurrent. So the power that was sold to raise the money and the money spent to generate the power for the year 2020. Those were the figures presented in the statement of financial performance. When it comes to liability, yes, the liability you saw in the balance sheet for Ghana is a consolidated position for what government owes centrally at the central government level, what we owe at the MMDA level, and what we owe at the SOE level, consolidated. And in consolidation, now we come to accounting, there's a need to do set-off. Because when government gives money to ECG, to government it's an expenditure, to ECG is a revenue. So you have to net it off in consolidation. So if you look at, or you may get a slide, the whole government section may not necessarily be addition of central government, local government, and SOE. You may add the three figures, but you not get the end because of this set-off position. So the figures you saw at the whole government level is the net position of government. So government cannot earn its own revenue. So if government gives money like, let's say SIGA, Consolidated Bank Ghana enjoys electricity and pays money to ECG. To ECG is revenue. To Consolidated Bank of Ghana is expenditure. But when we consolidate, that money will net off. So you don't see that as revenue or expenditure in the national account because government cannot do business with itself. An entity cannot sell and buy from itself. So those principles of consolidation were factored in the national account as well. So it's a lot of complicated accounting and acrobatics we go through to get a national account out. And it's an experience every accountant may want to have in the world. Fortunately, we are proud at the National Accounting Directorate to be one of the few, very few accountants in the world to be able to produce whole government accountants. So I'm proud to say, if you count all accountants in the world, I stand among the five who achieved this. And Ghana stands as a country who is among the 5 countries in the world to do a whole government accounting. Thank you very much. Right.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I missed out on who raised their hand first, but I think I'll use the hair texture at this point. So to our senior here at the front, and after which we'll take a question from the MD of Ghana Post.
Thank you. The name is Kwame Jesse, board member, Energy Commission, representing the board chair.
Okay.
My question goes to the lady who talked on the training. The problem we have in this country when it comes to a lot of SOEs is ethical leadership. We lack ethical leadership, and that's why there's so much corruption and are not making profits. I hope you will factor that one in your training program. And also, if you pick up the Companies Act, there's a whole provision on direct tax. I hope you also say something about that one. And then, finally, the role of the board chair. Some board chairs believe in means, others believe in the end result, and they can make or make the whole board and the whole institution. So I think these are three areas which, if you are not already considered them, I hope you factor them in your training program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So his was a form of contribution. We appreciate that. Yes, please remember that you can't go beyond a minute for a question. You can only ask one question. Don't consolidate it into 3 or 4 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Baiso Seko for MD Ghana Post. I'm asking this straight to Mr. Adade. It's to do with the SOEs that were captured in the 2019 to 2020 report. Now, what happens to organizations that have completed their reports for 2020, but they have either a board absent or an MD absent, and they are ready, I mean, the report is fully ready? Would you be able to work with a draft, or maybe a minister or somebody can sign the report? So I'm just trying to find out what happens when an organization has gone, you know, these reports, when it's completed, unless the managing director and the board chairman signs before they can become valid. And some organizations don't have boards in place now, but their reports are ready. What happens to this organization? Can they, I mean, I just need your advice on it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we'll take 2 more questions. That way, if it's all directed at the same presenter, he'll be able to go through quickly. So let's take 2 more questions.
Yeah,
I think
I'm not sure I got the question. There was some echo in the line, so I couldn't really get
his question. Oh.
What the question. What I got was, if the board is not in place and the financial statements are ready, what do you do? Is that correct? Is that the answer? Is that the question?
Yes.
Great, okay. To sign, the board chair is not available to sign the account. What do you do? There's no board at all, so what happens? Okay. Should I answer now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You can answer.
Yes. Please, you still have to submit. If you look at the requirement, even your draft, the template developed by controller, you may use IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standard, to do your financial statements. But Government of Ghana is using IPSAS, International Public Sector Accounting Standard. So the formats are not the same. So you have to convert your IFRS account into the controller developed template as required by the law. So use our template. If you are an SOE that government has more than 50% interest in you, you're required to use our template. And that template, you don't need an auditor to audit it. And the account we are preparing for the country is a draft account that we submit to the Auditor General. So even if your accounts are not audited, whatever you give us will still be submitted to audit anyway. So just give us the figures as you ended the year with, whether signed by the board or not. All we need is the head of account or a responsible officer in the entity should acknowledge that these figures are coming from this specified entity to us. So we don't own the figures. We only consolidate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sami Ohene, Chairman of the Board, Food and Drugs Authority. My question is, regulatory agencies like the FDA, which are not technically profit-making agencies, I agree that for formality we should also submit our financial accounts. But does this make a difference in your national preparation of the national account? I hope my question is clear.
The regulatory bodies like FDA.
Yes. Which are not required, we are not profit-making agencies.
Yes.
Does it make a difference? Do you add our returns to in your calculation of the national accounts?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, the answer is yes. Okay. Once you spend public money, whether you are profit-making or not, we need your data. So FDA, in terms of accounting, we don't categorize FDA as a state-owned enterprise. You report through your sector ministry. So we take the sector ministries and all agencies, and we get their data. So your data is consolidated under your sector ministry. FDA is under
Ministry of Health.
Ministry of Health. Ministry of Health.
Yes.
So your data will be added to that of Ministry of Health. So there is an exercise, data validation exercise going scheduled for Ministry of Health from 2nd of February. So we take your data through Ministry of Health as your sector ministry. But we have our team working with FDA directly. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we take, there was a hand. Okay, there are some hands on this side. Okay, we'll take from here and we'll move to the side of the room. So we've done 4 questions here. I think we'll take it to, we played first half here, we'll go to the second half on this side.
Thank you. My name is Kwame Jantua. I'm the chairman of the Oil and Gas Sector, AGI. Something baffles me. From the presentations you've given, it looks as if you train the state-owned enterprises well, and they're supposed to perform to the benefit of...
To be clear, this question is going to which presenter?
It's general. Either
It's
of
general.
them can answer,
Okay.
because it's baffling my imagination. So when you get a state-owned enterprises report, 2019, and it tells you that state-owned enterprises lost 586.4 million cedis. I find it very difficult to understand how. Maybe somebody can pinpoint how we can make such huge losses with our state-owned enterprises. Thank you.
Once a figure was mentioned, I believe I should respond. Is that correct?
Sure.
It looks like I'm the only figure man on the stage here. State-owned enterprises recording 50-something loss. Is that a question? How did it come about? Is that a question? Okay, if you recorded a loss, it means your financial performance for I don't know if I'm answering the question, though. Yes, so maybe let me get the question better, please.
I'm trying to find out if we have given training to most of our state-owned enterprises, or all, how we can still get a loss of 586 million, 0.4 Ghana cedis. I mean, are they legacy debts? What causes that kind of loss?
What causes the loss?
Yes. How do you drill down to understand why a state-owned enterprise would lose such kind of monies? Or you don't. You just do the figures and that's
Oh,
it.
okay. All right. I would have loved to have a financial statement of an SOE to know the nature of your income and expenditure to explain. But let's take ECG as an example. ECG generates revenue through the sale of power and related services. And ECG spends money. And you can categorize it into salaries, maintenance, repairs, and the rest. You should all know that whether ECG makes money or not, staff will receive their salary. You pay your, ECG itself also pays electricity, consume electricity, and other maintenance. So if at the end of the period, the revenue that came fell short of the money you need to pay your staff, maintain your assets, and also meet other financial obligations, you are going to incur loss. So you have paid more than you have earned. And simply, it means you have drawn from other sources that were not your normal sources of business. So you could deplete your capital. You may use your capital to pay salary. Or you may borrow money to pay salary, which will be on your balance sheet because you did not have enough revenue. So there are so many reasons why a company may incur loss. Simply, you have spent more than where you normally would get money from. So let's take you as an individual. If at the end of the month your salary is 5,000, but you ended up paying school fees plus other food and other things, you spent 6,000. That gap of 1,000 is a loss. But that loss might have been financed from other sources, borrowing or buying on credit. I don't know if that still makes any accounting sense, though. But we can still meet, maybe behind the scene.
Does that mean that the business model that we are using is wrong? Because what I don't understand is why we incur these types of losses. And if it is something that is ongoing, then we really need to do something about it.
Okay. Mr. Jantua, the Director General of SIGA would want to have a few comments on the question as well.
I think, Mr. Jantua, the reason why we're seeing such huge losses, a lot of them are legacy debts. Now, the challenge with the legacy debt is that it's also stifling the growth of the entities. So they also cannot breathe and they cannot perform adequately. So the reason why we are engaging the stock exchange is to find other means of finance, patient capital, because they are going to the banks and still borrowing at high interest because they are all deemed as risky entities and risky investment. So we all need to think through how we now ring-fence some of these legacy debts for some of the entities. Some of the entities have been able to come out of it. Others are struggling. There are also management issues, and we have to be blunt about it. So how do we address some of these management issues? And I think it's the last 3-4 years that state entities are going through this type of process. Before, they didn't have any of these controls. Some of them went 6-7 years without audited accounts. So how do you measure something? How do you manage something if you cannot measure? Because even in our own homes, you know, you manage your own accounts. So a lot of them are legacy issues. And I guess we all need to sit. That's why we invited NDPC. We're working with Controller and Accountant General. We'll be engaging the Bank of Ghana to see, because the truth is that at a point we need to find a way to write off some of these debts so that the institutions can have the space to go out there and look for cheaper capital to breathe. I hope I've answered the question. Thank you.
The boss himself has answered the question. I'm taking questions from this side now.
The name is Nana Upokuya Jiman, Board Chairman, Kumasi Abattoir. And my problem is we're talking about training board members and all that. But I see on some boards, there are people like me who cannot read, who cannot write, and still sit on the board. How do you train all these people?
Yeah, hello. To me.
Hello. Can I go ahead?
Okay, so let's
get the next question.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. My dear brother, I sympathize with you with your question. But it's a reality. My name is Dr. Legbam, Managing Director of Irrigation Company of Upper East Region, all the way from Navrongo. I just want to summarize some of the few things in the question from the lectures. Leveraging, complementing, all other things. I think SIGA has brought us here as a family now of state-owned enterprises. At certain times, we need some assistance to leverage on activities. You contact your sister SOE, and it's still giving you all the market charges. That makes you, that you cannot breathe, like what TG has said. Some of the companies, like you said, legacy debts are killing us. And how to even breathe is a problem. I'm sure you have all heard that ICO was almost dead. It's now reviving with the World Bank intervention. We are just trying to breathe. What I suggested the last time was, if SIGA could put up a bit of a document for sister companies to relate with other sister companies in terms of even services of a discount of a nature. I'll give you one example. My irrigation scheme has been automated. I need a frequency or radio to power certain gadgets. NCA is giving me a flat rate of 27,000, a fee to pay. And from the levies that the farmers are paying, I cannot even get half of that. How do I operate? So I think I made this comment the last time, and I was thinking that SIGA will find a way as brothers and sisters that when we seek services from sister companies, they should look at it as that we are rendering services to the nation. If I don't farm, how do you get food to eat? Meanwhile, because of the frequency, I cannot gather data to plan my farming.
Okay,
That-
please, could you?
I should stop here.
No, wrap it up, please. the
Because I'm coming from
suggestions.
far, I want to deliver everything. Well, I think they're clapping for me, so I'll stop here and then present the rest. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. My name is Kwame Samoa. I'm the board chairman of AESO. I like the curriculum, the kind of training that you want to offer. But let me add that training alone is not sufficient. We should not assume that training alone can solve our problems. I believe in training. There are other important elements like the value systems, dedication to work, commitment, integrity, honesty. You know, some of these important values. And it is something that we should be thinking of, you know, the kind of job that we do. And so when we are talking about training, let's try to be thinking of some of these important values. I'm a teacher. I teach in the university. And these days, I have been talking about ethical values. And this is something that is lacking in this country. When I glanced through what we want to teach, I didn't see anything like the issues of integrity, issues of honesty, you know, and those things. So please, I don't know. Let's try and be thinking of how we can help our country. And if we have that kind of commitment, I think we can address some of these challenges that we are facing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that last few questions all centered on training, so I'll have her answer those questions and comments.
All right, thank you very much. The last submission ties in with what Mr. Jesse earlier also proposed. And in the age of governance, we always say that the technical is not enough. Personal governance issues outweigh those technical issues. And of course, we have considered that in the curriculum. What I shared earlier is just an overview of the bigger topics, but there are exercises and other considerations that will speak to ethical issues. Then our colleague also asked about non-English speaking directors. Did I get it right? Or let me put it, those who cannot read and write. Okay, informal teaching. Okay, thank you very much. Informal intellectuals. And we understand that in the boardroom, in composing a board, it's not just the people who have been to school, but we also make room for people, with common sense, who can enable decision making. So in the classroom, when we set out, we get to engage the participants to understand some of their peculiar challenges. And on the go, we can make provision for that. So there's a pedagogy that we can use to engage the informal, which I have seen before. I've administered before. And I know even in some countries like Kenya, they use their home country language as a core, a formal means of engaging. So when we get there, yes, we will look at that protocol also. Thank you.
I'm sorry, there's a contribution from one of our presenters.
Yes, I want to touch on the intertrading bit that he raised. At Sega, we take intertrading very seriously, and there's a unit that handles that. I agree that we need to do some more by making that unit visible to the SOEs so that that unit can facilitate intertrading. However, there's a document called the State Ownership Policy, and in that document, it promotes fair trade. So in as much as you want to trade amongst yourself, the document also recommends that this fair trade in the market. So it's not so much of an issue of intertrading. Yes, it is there, but you see, you must offer, if your colleague SOE is coming to you, you must offer a certain price that is competitive enough. Otherwise, you would move to a non-SOE person. So the issue has always been your costs. And that's where we have most of our issues. That you find that if you look at their OPEX in relation to their revenues, it's just going up. So the whole issue is about your cost control, right? So that you can offer competitive pricing, and then your neighbor can come to you. Otherwise, you will not trade just because you are neighbors. But don't forget that we are also measuring his performance. And if he makes a loss, he or she will be held accountable. So that's a little. So let's look at our cost structure and try and reduce our cost structure, remove inefficiencies in our system. Then we can offer very good competitive pricing. That's all I can. But however, we will try and make that unit visible to you, and then you can share ideas. I mean, Ghana Publishing does a lot of work. Why can't we publish our documents there rather than taking it outside, and so on and so forth. So we'll look at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Sorry. Thank you very much. My name is Fred Aite, the Chief Executive Officer of Institute of Directors Ghana. And mine is a contribution. I haven't been here since morning. I want to congratulate the Ministry of Public Enterprise, SIGA, and also the specified entities from around the country for coming for such an occasion and a program like this. This is all about good corporate governance practice. And I've seen the program to be very balanced, where we've seen what I'll say on the journey, the improvements that have been made over the period in terms of SIGA coming into being, and for that matter, the ministry and also the finance ministry backing that. And also the program was so balanced because I saw the improvement, but I also saw the gaps. If you look at what came out from the Controller and Accountant General's office, was not only highlighting some of the challenges we have, because it's clear there's enough literature out there that as board of directors, leaders, and management, right, we contribute greatly to the value and the wealth creation of nations. And so when we meet like this annually, we need to take stock. Look at the positives, look at the negatives. How do we consolidate the gains on an annual basis? The gains that we've made, we improve on them, right? And then minimize the gaps or the challenges. So I want to say that well done to everybody here. I believe very much that as an organization in terms of the ministry, in terms of SIGA and ourselves, how do we consolidate gains which get made? And also ensure that when we come here annually, we are taking stock of the value that we are adding to help the nation grow in the right direction, but also minimize the cost or the gaps that we have. And I personally believe very much that then we can also then compare ourselves to the developed nations around the world that contribute about 40 to 60% of the GDP based on the governance of the nations through specified entities like ours, and also for that matter, having a dedicated ministry like the Ministry of Public Enterprises supporting us. So I want to say congratulations to all, but please, as we leave here, we play a key role in how the nation adds value to grow wealth, create jobs, and so on and so forth. And whenever we hear conversations on the radio talking about jobs creation, we as board chairs, board of directors, senior management, we must realize that we play a key role in supporting government and various regulators and organizations in ensuring that we achieve the objectives and the goals that we have. So thank you so very much for the opportunity. And I would say here that the Institute of Directors Ghana, we support what the ministry is doing and what SIGA is doing, and for that matter, the specified entities. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that contribution. Please, there's a hand raised in the back. If we can just take from the back.
Will I go? Okay.
Thank you very much. My own is a contribution.
Your name, designation.
My name is Gary Nimakon. I'm the board chairman, Gaming Commission. Let me remind all board members, chief executives, board chairmen, that the law on quasi-financial laws is still a good law in the country. Again, the law on breaching the Procurement Act is still good law in the country. There is a day for accountability. You all know there are people in court now who are standing trial for quasi-financial laws. You are aware. And from where I stand, there are more cases that Attorney General is going to roll out. Again, there are cases that the SP is going to roll out this month and next month. Most of them on procurement breaches, financial laws to the states. We must all understand that being a chief executive, a board chairman, a board member, there will be a day you have to account for your role or your stewardship. Do not allow your in-house lawyers to control you. Read before you sign. Read every document before you sign. And I'm saying this with all seriousness. When I call to account, that lawyer will be nowhere to save you. And I'm begging all of you. I'm just begging all of you. Read every document word for word. If you are not too sure, seek external advice before you sign. But there will be a day that you account. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Lawyer Gary Nimako. Please, let's take it from...
I think
we have, so time is fast spent, so we're going to round up quickly. If you are still marinating your question in your head, please
I've got
do
mine
so
is
quickly and then...
ready to go.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry, sir. Please, we'll take from... He's been waiting a while, so
All right.
we'll take from him before.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Kofi Seche. I'm board chair for NIB, National Investment Bank. Ambassador and your team, well done for putting together a nice and a well-organized program. There's the 30% target, which is aggressive from where we are today. In the president's remark, he mentioned this is the first time in our history that there's a ministry that's in charge of SOEs. And there are new directives also from the ministry which are consequences of non-compliance. Mine is really a comment. And I would like to see a SIGA that is strengthened, that if it doesn't appoint, it plays a big role in appointing the CEOs and the chairs of this organization. That's the comment I just really wanted to add. Thank you.
Okay. All right. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah, with board chairman for National Road Safety Authority. The couple of times that I've been at these events, I have to really commend SIGA for its emphasis placed on delivering results. But I also noticed that those of us who came in from the private sector, the first thing that hits you in the face is bureaucracy. Okay, so my question is simple. Is it within the SIGA domain to look for ways to cut down on bureaucracy so that the art of delivering results will be facilitated. If it's in your domain, what do you have in place to cut down on bureaucracy? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you do to cut down on bureaucracy? Who would like to answer that? You. So, it says when you move from the private sector and you come into public service, bureaucracy seems to hit you in the face. So, how do you deal with that?
Okay.
I've been directed to let DG answer that.
I think, Mr. Nkrumah, in terms of bureaucracy, governments all over the world work slower than the private sector. So it's not only in Ghana. Governments all over the world work slower than the private sector. And there is a reason for that. Because governments, we've used the word profitability here a lot. But government has a responsibility to provide public goods. So in so doing, you take into account the universe, your universe. Private sector, you're looking at a very small universe. That's yours. So it's easier to make those decisions. Having said that, yes, in my speech, and also the president alluded to it, and my minister did, this is the first time we're going through these processes, trying to streamline, regularize. Over the years, it's been just dumping on and dumping on and dumping on. So it's going to take a while. But it's our collective responsibility to ensure that we all do the right thing, or attempt to do the right thing. And if we begin to do those things, the bureaucracy will lessen. The truth is that we all benefit from the bureaucracy and the inefficiencies. So a lot of times we're talking about it, but when it's in our interest, we keep quiet. When it's in our interest, we keep quiet. So it goes back to the issue of ethics. And I guess, how do you teach honesty? How do you teach people to be accountable? A lot of us are who we are today because we grew up in neighborhoods where the community was our watcher. You did something, and some elder in the community would pounce on you and give you why are you doing that? So we grew up to be good citizens. We were not born to be like that. I guess now it's changing. So as leaders, we also have a responsibility to watch our own. If we see our other board members or CEOs going off track, there's nothing wrong with in telling them. It can't only be SIGA's responsibility. We have to work together. And gradually, we would get it right. I use the Chinese example. Chinese SOEs under Chairman Mao was worse than we are. But when they decided to change, it took them a very, very short time. But it wasn't because they did anything extraordinary. It was because when Don Sharpin said, it doesn't matter whether it's a black cat or a white cat, as long as it catches the mice. They all got that theory in, and they started moving. And they became very competitive against each other, helping each other. And they are where they are today. So we can also do it. We can also do it when we pull each other along. And I think that's the responsibility, and that's the vision of the president. How many boards in this country have fired their CEO for non-performance? It's not the president's responsibility. It's not SIGA's responsibility. We can recommend. But the board can fire the CEO. The board can recommend to the president that this person is not performing and they have to go. How many boards have done that? Gary talked about people the special prosecutor, AG chasing people. But the first one should have started with the boss of these institutions. You know, how many CEOs have queried their boards? CEOs would give their boss what they want so that they also give them what they want. Scratch my back, I scratch your back. So these are the things that we all need to start doing, and slowly, slowly, we'll get there. For me, when I heard the figure of 30%, for somebody who has worked in Ghana for a long time, I was surprised. You know, I was surprised. But if we know that we have to contribute to this bottom line, like the president said, what are we doing? You know, what are we doing? And I think sometimes we also don't have to be too hard on ourselves. There's been a lot of improvements. I mean, from the reviews, some of the companies are doing very well, and it was alluded to in the presentations. If your name was not there, hopefully when we, God willing, we come back a year to date, I'm hoping you go back to ensure that your name comes up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, are there any more questions?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. DG has some comments to make.
There's been no question directed to the Ghana Stock Exchange. And one issue that has come up is people are always complaining about lack of money, lack of resources. And she told us she has 10 billion that she wants to use somehow. But nobody is talking to her. Please, let's find out how we can access some of those funds to strengthen our own balance sheets.
Thank you. 10 billion for sale.
Then,
so.
Madam, I'll be stopping by for...
Please, I think when you'd have to go by the rules, and I'd have to clear you to ask the question. I think I'm the EC in the room for now, so you can't just take the microphone and start speaking. I can't even see who has it now.
EC, the light is behind me. I'm here.
I can't see. It's a very familiar voice, though. But
EC, I'm here. EC. Hi, my name is Nano Furiata. I chair the board of the National Theatre. I'm glad to hear that there's 10 billion that we can come and talk to you about. We'll stop by very soon. But my question comes from a question posed earlier and points that have followed from it. The question was, you have people who probably don't belong on your board. The madam tried to answer it. But it's actually telling you that we have square pegs and round holes. And if our objective is to be able to fix our finances, achieve what the president has as a vision, and if we're recognizing that we're in a political space where we have barely 3 years to achieve some of these things, why aren't we answering the question? Why are square pegs being put in round holes? And I think that I'd humbly like to suggest that the minister and the Director General should help us with that answer. I mean, if we're to go with what Gary threatened us with, and I used the word threaten in a friendly way, but he was right. If we're going to go with that, then why are we putting in people who don't understand the system or will take a long time to understand the system, and we're trying to achieve in a very short time? So, humbly, I think that while the madam tried to answer the question, it is a question for the minister and maybe the director to help us with. Why are we putting square pegs in round holes?
It's a very heavy question. Would you like to answer that question of why are we putting square pegs in round holes, given the ecosystem we operate in?
DG, maybe I can help you. Maybe you can say that you'll talk about it later. I don't know.
Okay, Nana, to answer your question, SIGA will take this up, and hopefully with time, these things will be resolved. But also there's one thing. When we are part of a collective, it's our responsibility to help each other. So if you're on a board, you should maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. I was on the board of CNN for Turkey. I had people who knew nothing about what we're doing, but they were there. They were there. But then one day we had a problem in Turkey during the earthquake. And the person that we thought was the least accomplished on the board was the one who saved the entire situation. So I also work on the theory that everybody in this world has their value. It's how you use the person or try to find out what the person's strength is. God didn't create all of us to be square pegs or round holes. We all have our value. So if you're on a board and you think somebody doesn't have a value, it's because you're looking at the person from your point of view. So I really hope that on your boards, you try to work with each and everyone and find out what their strength is. I think he answered the question. The fact that somebody hasn't been to formal school doesn't mean that they don't have wisdom. Some of the best companies in the world have been created by people who never stepped foot in the classroom. So it's different. So I think we need to also look at our boards, and that's why the training is important. The training is important not only in the terms of the formality, the straight lines, but in terms of drawing out the strength of each and every one of us. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our in-house consultants on training would like to add a few comments to that as well.
All right, thank you. DJ has said it all. Just to add, my experience as board capacity development consultant, I've seen that people who make the commitment to learn, they progress. So given whatever resources that are available to you, DJ has mentioned, you help each other. But most importantly is the environment you create for directors to thrive. I have seen a learning board always wanting to learn. I've seen institutions who say, no, we are all qualified, we don't need this. I've seen all before. But sometimes you find that people put quote unquote, they come from Harvard. When they come and the institution is relaxed, they don't work. People come with good certificates. They come and they find that there are loopholes in the system. They also relax and take their largesse. When they come and they find that the system doesn't support it, they are ready to give up their best. So you have to create a culture. You have to also set the tone. And, we come and everybody is prepared, asking the relevant questions and all that. They go home and do their homework. The next time they come for meetings, they are ready. They are prepared. And DJ has said, everybody has something to give. But it's the environment we create for ourselves to thrive. And of course, as we also get on the boards, make use of professional systems like board evaluations that formally communicate people's developmental areas to them. And they are ready to work on them. That's a few things I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to DG.
I just want to add something. We are all appointees of the president. And for me, if you realize we kept changing the times. The commitment he's shown today really touched me. And I would like all of us to try and help him to achieve. He left here to go for the emergency ECOWAS meeting, because the other ECOWAS heads of state are here. But then when it was brought to his attention that we had decided, or his office had moved our meeting to 10:30, he did everything possible because he wanted to meet all of you and address you. It shows his level of commitment. It shows his level of commitment because yesterday he had a very hectic day and he went home around 1 o'clock. So when I got the message that he was willing to meet us and how early could we meet him, I was surprised. And this message came around 10 p.m. So I think it's our responsibility, and that is what I want us to live here with. As he said, when we leave, what legacy do we want the institution that he put us in charge to remember us for? It's important, because he stopped everything that he was doing. He met some of his colleagues this morning and rushed here and had to rush back. He can't do everything. And that's why he's put each and every one where we are. It's our job to fill in the gaps. It's our job to fill in the gaps. And where we cannot fill in the gaps, we don't have to go to him. We can use any of our colleagues. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. The reason why we are here is that he believes that we can do it. And so let's try and help him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any? Okay, so we're going to take 2 questions and/or comments, and then that will be it for that session. I see a hand up here.
My name is Eric Otu, the Managing Director of Ghana Amalgamated Trust. So my question is to the DMD, of the Ghana Stock Exchange first, and then the second follow-on related to Sega. So I see, it's good to see the performance of the Ghana Stock Exchange and the KPIs that you showed, an opportunity for SEs to tap into the patient pool of capital. My question, though, is why is it that the listed companies has remained roughly flat for a long while, given the 10 decades or so, the 3 decades or so that the Ghana Stock Exchange has been in operation? So we learn as we prepare to be able to raise that kind of capital. But then also for Sega, if we move into the realm of opening SEs, so the shareholding goes beyond government, so now you have private sector participating, what framework considerations are we thinking through to ensure that we have a balanced approach to governance where, yes, government would have its inputs and guidance, and government would be able to drive some of its agenda, but yet we leave space for some of these other shareholders who would be supporting the SC so we can all move forward together as a country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a great set of questions. The last time we had an IPO on the Ghana Stock Exchange was in 2018. 2019, ADB Bank did a follow-on offering. So when you're on the stock exchange, aside the first time you raise capital, as you grow, you are open at any time to reach out to investors and continue growing. The current number of companies on the equities market is 36, 30 on the main market and 6 on the GACS, on the alternative market. There's been some amalgamation, some combination of companies, and some companies have delisted because their financial performance hadn't been good and they wanted to leave the market to go and restructure and possibly come back. But I think one of the biggest challenges we face as Ghanaians is the idea of opening up our businesses to partnerships. We found that in making outreaches to a lot of private sector companies, to governments, etc., the opening up to other equity partners who give you capital, long-term patient capital you never have to pay back, who become an accountability partner, which was the second part of your question, is something that Ghanaians are very closed about. Unlike Nigeria, I was on a conference with the Jamaican Stock Exchange yesterday, and one Nigerian entrepreneur, Tony Elumelu, was talking about just how proud he was that one of his biggest actions was getting listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So it's a culture we are working on to change, engaging the private sector, engaging government, that it doesn't have to own 100% of all these businesses. There are other good business partners, accountability partners, equity partners that can come in. So that's why we haven't seen a lot of take-up. It's a slow process. We are 31 years old, but we believe that the stars are aligned, and this is our decade to change this, because the money is available, and it's available for investment in in these companies. The framework, we've had some successes with some of the previously listed companies. We take, for instance, Ghana Commercial Bank or GCB Bank PLC, where government and SNIT own about 51% of it, and the private sector, Ghanaians, international equity holders hold the rest. Government appoints some directors, the public investors also make nominations to the board and appoint directors. We see that in SIC, GOIL, etc. And it's a format that has worked very, very well. Of course, we scrutinize who goes onto the board, how the management or the MD, etc., is appointed so that it works within the best of our Ghanaian value systems and the best corporate governance systems as well. So there is an existing kind of framework that we can look at bettering, but the key things that guide that is the SEC governance code on these board members, on how minority rights are protected, and also the GSE's own continuing listing obligations that requires that your board is diversified in terms of skill sets, and that directors are taking their responsibility very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Oh, wow. So we've exhausted all the questions. We are at the tail end of the program, and at this point, we would like to call on Mr. Actually, is the rapporteur ready? Okay, so we'll call on the rapporteur to give us Evans Owusu-Amankwah to give us a summary of what has transpired today. After that, we'll take closing remarks from the board chair of SIGA. Yes, please, our presenters can lead the stage. Please, let's give them a huge round of applause for spending the whole day with us and for being there to answer our questions as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Evans Owusu-Amankwah, and I served as the recorder for this event. It's been a rather hectic event and at the same time very reflective event for me and the team that sat to put the records together. And I hope you'll enjoy it as much as you enjoyed the Ghana's exit from the African Cup. Okay. Most importantly, I think I want to associate myself with the speaker on education and curriculum development. I have a background in training, and I think it was quite exciting to watch and follow the presentation on the need for boards to be educated on corporate governance in Ghana. And I think it's so central to our development. And I'll move on with the final records we have. And please take note that this is a total summary. And if I did not capture your comments, it will reflect in the final, very detailed report. So apologies. But this report does not try to provide a verbatim record of today's conference, but rather to summarize the key perspectives, topics, and recommendations that emerged. The conference was remarkable for the general levels of agreement on a very broad range of topics. Throughout the keynote address, high-level speech sessions, the 3 thematic sessions, and presentations, many speakers endorsed the content and recommendations from each other's interventions. Several major cross-cutting issues emerged across the 3 thematic sessions, 5 thematic sessions, including but not limited to a strong emphasis on the importance of reorganizing SOEs and their interplays with broader national development goals. The need to reverse the sorry state of specified entities, especially SOEs. The need for adequate high-quality data through timely reporting to enable monitoring of progress of specified entities. An emphasis on SOEs to contribute a third of Ghana's GDP, and the extraordinary interplay between leadership and technology in reinforcing growth and sustainability. Today, the conference had a very clear structure. We started with the opening remarks by Mrs. Holistadua Yentumi. Then we moved on the solidarity message by Christopher Cotet, resident manager of AFD, who reiterated the commitment of AFD to support SIGA to discharge its mandate without fail. We immediately got into the next session, which was speeches. Ambassador Edward Boateng, Director General of SIGA, emphasized the need for SEs to adhere to best practice timelines to improve SIGA's ability to reinforce compliance, while admitting the daunting nature of work at SIGA and drawing comparisons with China, UK, USA, and Rwanda. There was an overarching strong commitment from the DG to ensuring the continued implementation and realization of the mandate and goals of SIGA's program of action, as well as grasping the opportunities to address issues of growing concern, such as zero tolerance for non-compliance and bad corporate practices. His speech was immediately followed by Honorable Joseph Kujo, Minister of Public Enterprises, who decried the failure of specified entities to meet the national expectation of contributing more than a third of Ghana's GDP and expressed hope of a revamp with the new leadership at SIGA. The final speech was delivered by Honorable John Kuma, Deputy Minister for Finance. While most of his key points on the poor performance of specified entities, especially the SOEs, coincided with the Minister of Public Enterprises, there are very distinct points that cannot be overstated. Significant amongst them are the following. The ministry will not honor any obligation or to any specified entities that fail to meet the reporting requirements specified under the PFM Act, PFM regulations, and SIGA Act. Apply sanctions and penalties when specified entities commit infractions of the PFM Act, PFM regulations, and the SIGA Act, including the removal of members of governing boards. In sync with the theme for this conference, the Deputy Minister described leadership in the context of specified entities' relationship with SIGA, notably the ability to meet targets agreed under the performance contracts with SIGA, striving to rein in expenses, and then strictly complying with statutory reporting obligations by SEs. The President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, delivered the keynote address. The President's remarks presented an interconnected perspective on how leadership and technology have worked together to improve the country's developmental trajectory. He expressed concern about the unimpressive performance of specified entities and further reiterated his confidence in SIGA's Director General to turn the fortunes of specified entities around. The remainder of this report is structured around the 5 themes addressed in the substantive presentation sessions of the conference. Under the themes, Policy Conference for Operational Efficiency and Profitability of the Specified Entities, expanding the national accounts to include SOEs and JVCs, assessing patient capital for strategic growth, amongst others. There was often considerable overlap in these presentations of the interventions to different sessions, and this summary is organized by the relevant thematic topic, rather than which session the intervention was made in. Relevant material from the high levels speech session is also incorporated into the summary on each theme. This summary report also places some of the discussions in their broader context, where this helps understanding of the issues covered. So we'll start with the first presentation on policy coherence for operational efficiency and profitability of the specified entities. The presentation during this thematic session was predominantly concerned with adapting to the realities of development dynamics by investing in planning and synergy of goals across specified entities. The NDPC, that's the National Development Planning Commission, has generally brought about unifying the work and aspirations of specified entities through the combination of improving the health of reporting and unifying objectives of specified entities. The results, however, show significant disconnect with national development goals and agenda. Thus, the pursuit of national development, whilst improving unified, timely, and accurate aspirations and data reporting, can be overemphasized. Ghana's development agenda requires that the national development goals are integrated and indivisible and should balance the socioeconomic dimensions of national development, as in the examples of the free senior high school program and the National Health Insurance Scheme. To achieve this balance, specified entities must address inter-organizational and intra-organizational objective disharmony to enhance policy coherence in improving the national development outlook as a baseline for implementation of national goals. The major recurring theme of the discussions in this session was investing in unifying individual SE's goals. Synergistic actions in the broadest sense were seen as a crucial enabler of sustainable national development. Without doubt, specified entities who are better aligned with national goals have more opportunities to realize their own goals. Under the second presentation, expanding the national accounts to include SOEs and JVCs, traditional financial reporting is not sufficient anymore for the renewed need for the financial information of stakeholders. As a result, the government, through SIGA, has created different policies to stimulate or to have a strong rise in this kind of reporting. The Comptroller and Accountant General's Department has high expectations about the potential of the financial performance of reporting process to lead to improved transparency and accountability, as well as to internal change and performance improvement. A significant number of specified entities have failed to report their performance. The main conclusion of the presentation is that expanding the scope of the new accounting regime to include SEs is an important goal in improving comprehensive national financial performance reporting. When you hide the information, Ghana suffers. The third presentation was on assessing patient capital for strategic growth. It was indicated that this very long-term investment is emerging as a support mechanism for highly promising companies, augmenting traditional instruments such as government support. It's the missing piece in the financing innovation puzzle in Ghana, which the Ghana Stock Exchange is collaborating with SIGA and SOEs to resolve. Entities can raise patient long-term capital by becoming issuers of equity or debt securities. This capital through securities can be listed on 3 markets of the Ghana Stock Exchange to solve complex problems or challenges. Finally, the presenter stated the 6-step listing process in achieving the objective under that process. Now, the next presentation was on deploying a corporate governance curriculum for training of boards of specified entities. The presenter indicated that the codes of best practice in corporate governance require board members to undergo periodic training to improve their knowledge and skills so that they can become better leaders and change agents of Ghana's public companies. After holding a series of meetings to develop a standardized curriculum for corporate governance leadership and consulting with directors and other trainers, the corporate governance curriculum structure includes governance program, legal and regulatory programs, strategic leadership programs, control environment programs, financial stewardship programs, and accountability. The next presentation was on SIGA's annual work cycle and reporting requirements. SIGA assesses, analyzes, and evaluates corporate reports that are presented to it, among other things. SIGA must help specified entities in meeting reporting requirements in a timely manner, in compliance with stipulations of public financial management regulations. Oversight, clarity, compliance, work alignment, and information flow are all possible with the annual work cycle that has been developed. As SIGA works to strategically reform its specified entities so that they can achieve their missions by 2030. These entities must comply with the relevant acts and regulations that regulate their operations. We moved to the most complex discussion forum, which will be captured adequately in the final report that will be submitted to SIGA. In conclusion, there was perhaps a surprising degree of consistency in the discussions that took place during the meeting today. There was virtual unanimity on most broad issues under each of the 5 themes. There was also very strong support for the continued implementation of SIGA's mandate, with a further strong endorsement of the need to strengthen such commitments and to ensure they form a key part of SIGA's transformation agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. At this point, we would like to call on Mr. Terence Darko. He's the board chair of State Interest and Governance Authority. Mr. Terence Darko, if you're here, kindly. Oh. He's not here? Okay, so Mr. Felix Intrakwa would come in instead and share a few words with us. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is a day well spent. I know Mr. Terence Darko. I'm a board member of SIGA, but I'm here in the borrowed groups of Mr. Terence Darko. And I want to associate myself with a summary made by the rapporteur. He appears to have made my work easier than I thought, because most of the notes I took have been dealt with. But in the first term of His Excellency the President, when he inaugurated the board of SIGA, he said, I charge you to take over SIGA, and the approach should be new king, new law. Today, he told us to be mindful of the legacy we leave behind. And this is for everybody. When your term ends and you are going after the 3 years, do you ask yourself a few questions? If you will, would you ask, what have I achieved? Or what am I leaving behind? Or did I make a change? That's the message I got from the President's comment about legacy. The minister also said it, that we should also be looking at the legacy we are leaving behind. The various speeches have enriched us, and we are going to, I believe, build upon what we have learned. But I think serving on the board also is a matter of integrity. It's not so much the book you are carrying. And this has come out of the contributions. Integrity on the board. How can you sit on the board and not render accounts? And then you say, my term has ended, I am going. Who should answer questions about the accounts? As a director, it's your business. You are responsible for the financial statement. So as SIGA, we take this seriously. If the MD, if the management of the accountant is not helping the board should be able to deal with the situation. You cannot come to SIGA and say, I'm unable to render accounts. Then you are unable to remain there. That's the idea. Now, SIGA law provides for civil and criminal liability for directors who breach their duties. And this law descends down to all institutions that come under the umbrella of SIGA. So if directors of SIGA are criminally liable, directors of other entities will also be criminally liable for the breaches of their duties. So it is a very serious business we find ourselves in. What is the legacy you will leave when your term ends? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Felix Ntraka. He's a board member at SIGA. All too soon, we've come to the end of our 2020 Policy and Governance Forum organized by SIGA. I must say you've shown true leadership, sticking and staying with us and making meaningful contributions to the forum. Before we end, though, I think that it will be right to take a few pictures with our new king, who is definitely going to shape the direction for SIGA. So please, we'll start off with board chairs, and then we'll do duly appointed CEOs as well. We'll have them, I think that we'll have some of them standing here, and then some on stage as well. So please, if I can get some help to get the seats off stage. Also, let me add that lunch has been provided, but due to COVID-19 restrictions, we can't seemingly flood the move and pick dining restaurants. So what they've done is they've done packed lunches for us outside. So when you, after the photo op, when you make your way outside, please just pick a pack outside when you leave. So please, photographers, could you please, and if I could have some SIGA, yeah. I already said that, yeah. I already said that. So please, board chairs, we're going to have board chairs with our DG. If our presenters are here, please, presenters, kindly join as well.